with Brent, Karl, and Shawn. We've got two of the sexy dad bods here with myself and Karl. How you doing, Karl?
As usual. Yep. The best. The best is always saved for first, right?
It
Or
is.
is it supposed to be for last? But I don't know how that phrase goes. But, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's been a minute since we've been together. I know we did a small smidgen of a podcast when we were together down in Phoenix, which was really good seeing you guys. It's always good getting together.
Yeah. We were together, like literally together for 3 days. It was pretty cool.
In like Flint.
So, yeah.
And then I went to Dallas this last week. We were going to go to DC. Plans got kind of canceled on that, so we ended up going to Dallas and had a really, really good time. Had a lot of fun.
I haven't been to Dallas ever. It seems like it's hot this time of year.
Every place is hot this time of year. I mean, it's what, like 102 in Salt Lake right now?
No, it's only 93, so it's actually cooler than Phoenix. It's been a lot brighter, a lot hotter this last week. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
So
we took a tour of Jerry Jones's palace, his football stadium there where the Cowboys play. And I'll tell you, if you're ever in Dallas, that's definitely a tour worth doing. Even if you're not into sports, it's a very incredible place. It's pretty spectacular. How everything's put together.
Did you tour the Dallas Cowboys locker room? Or
did.
What do they do?
You go like out into the open area. You go upstairs, up high, and see stuff. They talk about the video board. You go down low and into the Dallas Cowboy. First, you go into the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders locker rooms.
Yeah, that's the best place to be.
And then you go over to the regular locker rooms, and all the players got their nameplates, and then you go kind of out onto the field level there, and one of the stops was inside one of the suites and stuff, and it's worth the tour. It's a very, very cool tour.
So what was her name, the cheerleader that was escorting you around?
Oh, it wasn't a cheerleader. It was this guy who was awesome. He really was. He was former Marine. He was Texan, fooling through. He kept giving me a hard time about my Niners, and I kept bringing up, how come there's no pictures of the catch from Clark in '81? Where's that picture at? It's that. But awful lot of fun, and I recommend. That's something worth doing if you're ever in the Dallas area.
Well, yeah. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been kind of uneventful, kind of nice. Like I made some big changes on the trip, and things are moving along on that. A couple different projects I'm working on, and heading to Florida this week, so it should be fun. And I'll give you guys some information on that. Yeah. Maybe even we can podcast from Florida and Tennessee and Phoenix next week, maybe. We'll see. I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I did see a pretty cool movie, and I will recommend it to our audience. It's called Sound of Freedom. It's about a guy named Tim Ballard who was a DEA, he was a Homeland Security agent. And basically, I knew about this guy a while back. He's from Utah. You could kind of tell he has 18,000 kids in the movie, and but it's kind of funny in the movie. He's drinking Coors Light, but but from knowing the background, I kind of knew about this guy already. I knew about his organization, but I didn't. I mean, the way they did this movie and the way it came out was pretty awesome, and it's about child trafficking and what a big problem that's been. And it's not just been a problem just recently. It's been a problem for a number of years. And this movie took 5 years to get out because Hollywood, and I think there's more to it. I mean, you and I have talked about, and Shawn have talked about conspiracies for quite a while, but, with the Epstein scandal, it's really icky that these adult men had these young teenage girls flown into this dude's island And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is like a big business for the cartels down in Mexico and across South America. And so
the CIA.
This story, yeah, well, it could be. Yeah, you're right. Well, this story about this Mr. Ballard, he was Homeland Security, and one of his jobs was to bust all the pedos. And so I'll just talk about this first part of the show. So he was busting this creepy dude who had like a closet full of porn of young little boys and girls. And so he tricks him into giving him some information for a sting operation to save this little boy. And so that's how it starts. And basically his partner basically said to him, he says, this is really, I mean, they had busted all these pedos, and he's just like, that's all we're doing. We're just busting the end user.
Yeah.
What we need to get is the distributor, the person that's actually causing the trouble. So this organization that Tim's created is called Operation Underground Railroad. And of course, the only people that don't like the organization are the same people you see in the news that hammer anything that makes you really wonder what's really going on.
I had seen something from Mel Gibson, who gave a very, very strong plug. I don't know if he's behind the movie or not, but he was talking about
the guy that did Jim Caviezel. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I have no idea.
The guy.
But Mel Gibson has said, I mean, and he's very, very blunt. He's like, we have a very serious issue going on right here in our own backyards with our own neighbors, and it is child sex trafficking. And he said, and what he says is the first step to eradicating this is making it aware. And this is the first step of making it aware. Go see, and then, he mentions the name of the movie.
Well, just so you guys know, they don't show any actual child porn or anything that's too over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's PG-13, right?
Yeah, it will piss you off. I mean, I was ready to tear someone's head off by the end of that show. But at the end of the movie, I mean, it has a good ending, I'll say that. And you go away. I mean, you bring some Kleenex because you will tear up. I literally cried a couple times because it's just sad. And these are kids outside of the United States, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I know it happens here in the United States as well. But I just can't imagine living in some of these countries, being raised your entire life, and then having to worry about someone snatching you from your dad.
Yeah.
As you're sitting in your house. I mean, that's just crazy.
They just come in and take them. And I've seen or I've heard some stories. How true they are, I don't know. But I've heard some disturbances that have taken place with the movies. For example, there were a group of ladies that were talking about on a TikTok how they purchased tickets for this. And then maybe 45 minutes later, they were refunded the money back. And so they called and they're like, what's going on here? And they said, oh, well, the power's out, and the air conditioning's out in the theater. And they're like, well, why didn't you just say that when you refunded the money and give us an opportunity? Like, we can still see the movie, right? And they're like, yeah, you can still see the movie, But just kind of, again, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard a couple little instances of where they've tried to curtail or not show the movie in certain places, which have drawn a lot of suspicion.
The Rolling Stones came out with a terrible review.
The magazine?
The dude that did the review looked like he smokes pot every single minute of his life. But the point is, he just came out and just trashed it, and none of the things that he said were actually correct at all. So
he didn't watch
anyone who, I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he just got talking points from someone. But if anybody, they are doing a pay it forward type program. So if anybody has a problem right now going to the movie theater because they don't have the money, it's okay because things are kind of tight right now. They do have a pay it forward program. It's called Angel Studios, ANGEL studios.com. Just look it up on Google. And you can sign up for some free tickets. And I recommend, while it's still in the theater, it's probably only going to be in the theater 3 or 4 weeks because it's just a small studio. But funny thing, first week, guess who has more money between Indiana Jones?
Yeah, it outsold it.
It's outsold them.
Yeah.
So that proves there is a market for people with good values who want good movies. And so that's why it's very important, audience, to go out and support these movies when they come out like this, and not just see it at home, but watch it out the theater. And plus, watching it in the theater was pretty good. This is a good movie. This isn't one of those cheesy Bible shows or evangelical shows that you see out there. Some of them are still pretty good. I like some of those movies, but this is high-end, well-done, Hollywood level type movie. You'll be entertained. You'll cry. It'll make you think. And that's what I like most about a good movie, is it'll make you think. It was almost as good as Schindler's List. That movie was like one of a kind. You'll never see one like that again. But it was almost to that level. So go see it.
Well, and
that was my plug.
And like our good friend and fellow podcaster Mel Gibson said, I know you call him Melly G because you guys are pretty tight and stuff, but the first step is understanding that there actually is a problem, and it sounds like that this is a pretty good movie to go and see.
Mel needs a haircut, though, man. He's looking.
He looked pretty trimmed up.
You think he looked trimmed up?
Yeah, he did. When he gave this little plug, he did. Yeah, he didn't.
No, you look a little trimmed up.
I did. I did. I got a haircut on Friday, and
he looks good.
Trimmed up a little bit.
You look good, dude.
It's also the headphones probably that kind of smashed everything.
I can't tell if that's a yellow or orange shirt, but
it's orange.
It looks good.
It's orange.
Okay, all right.
A little Tennessee orange going on
there. So, well, guess what we missed when we were at Glenn's funeral, and you've wanted to do this for a couple of weeks now, right?
Yep. We had our Father's Day. It was actually, I think, the weekend after, wasn't it? I can't remember what it was. It's been a minute.
It's been a crazy few weeks.
It has. And, to reiterate with Glenn's funeral, it was, I think far too often we see people we haven't seen in a very long time, and it's always so good to become reacquainted, but it always appears like it's at a funeral or something like that when we, see people again who we haven't seen in some time, and that's what makes it sad. But I think it's also kind of what rekindles past experiences and time that we've had together. And I enjoyed being with you guys. It was a lot of fun. We had some good meals. We had some good laughs. We had a great final day there together. I know you spent an extra day with Shawn and his wife. It was very kind of them to pull your sorry ass in and let you stay with them. But it was good. I had a great time. I had a really good time.
And his wife's awesome. So hopefully she's listening to our podcast now. So anyway, we really appreciate you and your. We had a great breakfast that morning before you left.
Fantastic.
So,
yeah, that was
nice meeting her, and so it was very enjoyable. Turns out Shawn's the anti-social person, and so that doesn't surprise me though.
Yeah,
he's not even here today.
I'm hoping that between you, myself, and Rachel, we can help him overcome this anxiety blanket that he holds over his head. Just kidding, Shawn. We love you, bud.
Hey, since you're not here, you can't defend yourself.
Right.
So that's punishment.
So we had talked about putting together a Father's Day episode and kind of honoring, our own fathers, just because, the three, between Kent, my dad, and Shawn's dad, Dale. Shawn's twin. They're good people, and they're three men that have had an impact on all three of our lives. growing up, and as I've mentioned before, I've had some business dealings with your dad. As we were both mules running cocaine across the Mexican border, and so sorry, Kent
Yeah,
or Kent.
that was supposed to be. Yeah.
Kentavo, sorry, he was known as Kentavo to the cartel
Did you
down there.
see that Clint Eastwood movie called The Mule?
It's a great show. It's fantastic.
That was an awesome show, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I love
the part where he's pulled over and he's with those guys and they're sweating. They're like, "Oh, I got one more thing. It's in the back of my truck here. Hold on just a minute," and they're like, got their guns all loaded and stuff. And he comes out with this pie. He's like, "Oh, you got to try this. It's magnificent." It's a great show.
Yeah, the cartel was smart, man. That's why I'd have a guy like him running my money too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm thinking about doing it in my retirement. I've done Uber.
I think it's a good plan.
I think it's a step above Uber, being a mule. And
okay, well, I was going to ask you, man. Funerals are tough for everybody, especially people who've had to do this more than one time, and I think each one of us, the three of us, have had to do that. But I've never had to do that with a father. And Shawn and I so far are pretty lucky. We still have our dads. And so I was wondering if it had impacted you a little more. And I could tell this last couple of weeks you've really wanted to talk about your dad, Brent. And so I'd like to ask you a few questions about him and your relationship with him. And,
yeah, sure.
And kind of get you guys' story. So basically, from what I know about you, is you were the whoopsie baby.
Ripping the rubber. I think the scientific term is ripping the rubber. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. How old was your dad when he had you?
He was 45.
So he figured out how to be a good dad by that point. That's good. Okay. So as far as, tell us a little bit about your dad. I mean, where did he grow up? And then you did tell us about he and your mom, but tell us about some of your early memories of your dad. What was he like?
So he's definitely grew up in a different time, to say the least. Born in 1925, middle of the Depression, like as dirt poor could be. He was born in a town called Hoxie, Arkansas. He was the third child. So he had a brother that was older. He had a sister that was older. And the home that they lived in, I think when he was about 2 years old, the home got destroyed by a tornado. And so the home is no longer there. It's Hoxie, Arkansas is in the northeast corner of Arkansas. And so they had to move to a town called Mount Vernon, Illinois, which is probably, it's right in between, right in the middle of the state of Illinois. And equal distance between Chicago and St. Louis. Have you? Yeah, if you've driven through there, or if you driven between Chicago and St. Louis, you go right through Mount Vernon.
There's not a lot there.
No, there's not. It is a bypass. But so that's where he grew up. The first home they moved into was a relative, and he talked about, I remember we met them once. They drove across, and we met them actually in St. Louis, and then kind of went through Mount Vernon, and he kind of took us on a tour of, the old area and stuff that he remembered. And the home he showed us the attic, and that's where the kids stayed. And he talked about it was so cold, but they had a fireplace chute, and what the kids would do is put their feet up on this fireplace chute to keep them warm at night, Wow. And so, again, a completely different time. He talked about how you could, for a dime, get a St. Louis Cardinals baseball ticket and a ride in the back of a grocery pickup truck to go out and see the game. And so he talked about seeing Cardinals games in the early 30s and late 30s, which had like the Gas House Gang and Dizzy Dean, and just these names are just like legends, that I only hear of, and so pretty cool stuff. And so When he was, I guess, about 13 or 14, he up and left. And just took off, had to go make a living, had to get money for the family. My grandfather worked for the railroad and was kind of off and on during that time. And this was the early 40s. And he went up to Cleveland, Ohio, hitchhiked up there, and started driving a truck at the age of 14 years old. So
they didn't care about licenses back then, did they?
License, you know. You can hitchhike your way up to Cleveland. You can figure out how to drive a damn truck, you know.
They didn't have to.
And so he did that for a while up there. What's that?
What was that?
I said they didn't have to have logs either. Truck logs.
Nothing like that at all.
You know what I'm talking about. Karl probably doesn't. But
nothing like that at all.
Yeah.
There was no DOT. There was less government during that time.
Yeah.
So, as he was there, 40s rolled around and World War I started. And he tried to, or I'm sorry, you're correct. World War II began. And so after Pearl Harbor, he went to enlist, and during his physical, they found black spots on his lungs. Well, so he couldn't join the Army, but he had also heard that they were going to be building airfields out in Guam. So him and a buddy of his hitchhike all the way across the country to go to Guam, trying to make their way to, I believe, San Francisco, then hop on a boat and then make their way out to Guam. When he got out to Utah, past Salt Lake, in the middle of the desert, and if you've ever been out in Utah and traveled towards Wendover, you know there's that huge minerals plant like graphite, or I can't remember the name of it, but it's way off the interstate. Well, they ran out of money there, and so they had to start working for the mine. And he said they did that for about 2 to 3 months to save up enough money to finish hitchhiking across the country. So that was his first experience of Utah.
Working in a mine.
Yeah, working in a mine, and then like hitchhiking into Salt Lake to go to a bar and drink for a while, then back over and work in the mine, and back and forth and back and forth. Well, they made it to Guam. I think he was in Guam for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, building those runways and stuff back there. Came back to California and settled in the Bay Area, and that's where he met my mom.
Did he learn how to surf in Guam, or
no?
Did he?
No, okay. Nothing like that at all. Yeah, just busy digging holes and laying asphalt.
Let me ask you some questions, though, that are a little more personal, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Let me ask you what your favorite memory when you were a kid was, and then when you were a teenager. Was there something you and your dad liked to do together that kind of kept you guys close? So, first memory of your dad when you were a kid.
I think the favorite memory was when he would come home, because he would be out for 4, maybe 5 nights at a time. And so there was always, it was either real excitement or real fear, because I was about to get my ass beat from all the stuff I'd done while he was gone. But generally, it was excitement. I remember I would always be, looking out the window and seeing if he's driving up. And I think one of my favorite memories is when I was born, he had an old red Ford pickup truck. It was like a 67 Ford pickup truck. And I remember one night, when he came home, he arrived in this brand new blue Ford pickup truck. And so that was like the coolest thing in the world, just brand new truck, and dad's home and all that stuff. And
that's right on, man.
Yeah, so because of how long he'd worked there and stuff, he'd always had a lot of vacation, and every summer, and Shawn probably remembers this, I would disappear for about a month. We were gone. We would travel. We had a truck and camper, and we had trips to Florida. My sister lived back in Virginia back in that time, and we would drive back there. We would drive up into the Northeast. We went through Chicago. We went through Canada. We went everywhere. We drove to Alaska one year. So I got to see a lot of the country that most people never got to see, especially my age. And I think that excitement of traveling kind of carried over to me because I always prefer driving on vacations and stuff like that.
So was your dad already retired when you were a teenager? I mean,
yeah. So I was like maybe 14 or 15 when he retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was always wondering why you got to go on those cool trips, where I was like stuck at home because we never had any of the cash to go do something. Where Dad was busy at work, right?
You were the rich.
Yeah, he would cash out. He would get like 4 weeks, and he would cash it out all at once.
We weren't rich, Shawn. I'm telling you, your dad probably had more money than. Well, I don't know. Maybe back in that time we were doing okay. But
I'm just teasing you because I know it gets you upset. I know.
Jeez. Yeah,
you guys just called the butler, didn't you, Karl? Didn't you just call the butler and bring up the BYU bus and be shuttled across the whole country?
Yeah, that's us. That was us. Well, Shawn, you know what? I would like to. Well, before we get into with go to Shawn's dad, one thing the things I remember about your dad, he's just the nicest guy in the world. I mean, he was always really friendly, but he was kind of quiet. We'd see him at church every Sunday. At the time when we were younger, I was always kind of curious why he wasn't a member. But then, eventually he took the plunge. As they say, he was a dry Mormon for a long time. But then he finally was baptized. And I know you don't believe the same way he does, but tell us kind of what made him, change at that late point in his life. It's something that most of us don't do.
So he wasn't born into a church. I'd asked him before, like, were you baptized? He's like, yeah, I was baptized, but I was just like baptized Christian. One of these down by the river dunking evangelical type of, Jesus saves type of deal.
Like an old brother. So
I think, like who?
Like an old brother, where art thou?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I've been saved.
It was exactly like that, the way that he described it. Yeah. And I wouldn't call from what I remember of my grandparents, I wouldn't call them religious. A lot of people in the South, especially during that time and into like the 50s and the 60s, they became very interested in evangelicals like the Jimmy Swaggarts and people like that you would see on TV. So that was more their religious lifestyle, I guess you could say. They weren't church-going people. And so I think being in Utah for an extended period of time, being with my mom, who was extremely active, I think it was just one of those, if I'm going to do something, this might as well be it. He didn't not believe in it, and with everybody around and stuff that seemed to be active in it, I guess it just kind of, made sense to him.
Finally said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. I look at the two, you and your mom, and then I look at you and your dad. The more I've gotten to know you, the more I think you're more like your dad.
Yeah, how I'll just randomly spit out crazy off. That's my dad. My dad was very sly and dry with a sense of humor. Like he would say something out there and it would just be funny as hell, but he would say it in the most monotone and straight-faced voice, knowing that it's funny, and that's what made it like 10 times funnier, That's where I'd gotten that from, is from my dad.
Well, Shawn, you knew this was going to happen, so let me ask you, what's your earliest memory of your dad? Tell us what kind of feelings you had, and what was. Make it positive if you can, will you? So.
Oh, stop it! I've got positive memories of my dad. I love my dad. You guys are completely misinformed if you think that I don't.
It's not us. You're the one that makes a big deal about your dad. We like him. Actually, Dale's a good guy. So. Brent, do you disagree with that statement?
Dale's a fantastic guy. I love Dale with all my heart.
I don't complain about my dad. I'm just honest. I'm just honest about everything.
All right. Well, tell us your favorite memory of your dad. You're a pops.
So
your old man.
Before I do that, just real quick, Brent, I loved your dad. He was always really kind to me, and always very welcoming of me over to your house. This squirrely little kid. He was never rude or mean or anything, and he was always happy to have me come along when my dad and he were golfing. So your dad was a cool dude. I was kind of scared of him when I was little because he wasn't around much and I didn't see him. He wasn't always there. I wasn't sure if he was your dad because he wasn't always there. Who's this guy?
Right.
But no, he was such a great man, and I loved him. He was a good dude. So
Thank you.
I'm very sorry that you don't have him with you anymore. So.
Yeah. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. No, I was saying thank you. I really do appreciate that. I know he was very fond of you. He always spoke very highly of you. He couldn't stand Karl, and he was banned from our house, probably because of his college affiliation. But not, he was extremely proud and happy and very proud that you supported the Utes in the way that you do, Shawn.
He did not support the Cougars, Karl. He did not.
All right. Well,
and he didn't like you because you brought dirty magazines over to Brent's. So I heard him say that.
No, that was some other house close to Brent's. But we won't say whose house it was. They even had a jukebox. Woo-hoo. Get down, get busy. Let me hear your anyway. Okay, Shawn. Best memory. You're sure, kid. Right. Let's go.
And before Shawn starts with his dad,
I'm not. I just wanted to say that about Brent's dad.
Yeah,
he's such a good dude.
And I want to say, before you start with your dad, when we did the Mother's Day thing, what you talked about with your mom, I was totally blown away. I just realized I never really knew your mom, so I've actually been kind of anxious to hear the backstory about your dad too, because I feel like I just know them as growing up in this area, but I don't know them before, so I have to say I'm kind of excited.
Right.
Yeah, was he a shit?
You'll have to tell me later what. No, he's a shit kicker. A lot of the times he was just a Shawn kicker.
All dads are.
Yeah. So as a young kid, a couple of my favorite memories of my father are one when we would go fishing. Fishing is to this day one of my absolute favorite things to do. I could fish every day and never ever get tired of it. And I have very clear memories of going and him teaching me how to cast and pull in a lure and doing that, getting up at 4:00 in the morning, which I hated, but to go fishing and driving in his truck to get up the mountain and things like going and filling the back of the truck up with wood, having to go out and cut trees down. And I don't know why that is a good memory for me, because it was really hard and heavy work. But it's a good memory to me. I remember it, and it's a positive experience. And I think thinking about that, it wasn't about the work. The work was, like I said already, it was hard and it was heavy and exhausting and spending the entire day doing it. It was the time. For me, I learned that spending time with people is the way that I love them. And so when I am able to spend time with other people that I care about, that is, for me, loving to them and loving for me back is so. I think it's one of those things that people call love languages. So that's really the experiences that I had with my dad were just spending time with him outside of the house, outside of so my grandparents had a farm. Both grandparents had land, and one set raised sheep, one set raised vegetables and trees. So I spent a tremendous amount of time working, and so away from that, just spending time doing anything that was fun was special to me. The other thing that really stands out, when I was 8 years old, we went and saw Star Wars together. My dad would occasionally, like once a month, he would take one of the kids and have a special day with Dad. And one of the times that we did that, we went and saw Star Wars, and that was such a good memory for me. I took can't remember, I think both of my sons to go see one of the Star Wars movies when it came out, and for me it was like it just reminded me of everything that was important about that day with my dad, and I was trying to create that same kind of memory for my boys. So those are really, really important, and then there are other things that as you get older, and things that are important that I remember, and
you know what's cool about that?
I ran. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's cool about that, and it's one of these things that I've kind of talked about, where as we get older, we realize things that we didn't realize when we were kids. And I'm not saying that like we were dirt poor and starving and anything like that, but you think about that time, young parents, a family of a bunch of kids, and being able to spend one-on-one time, with your child when you don't have a lot of money, it's priceless, and it's those, he created a moment with you from that, at that time, at that moment, you didn't think anything of it, but as you get older and you realize what the real circumstances are, you really gain a great appreciation of what was really involved with that,
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And we were dirt poor. I remember one time coming home from school, and my mom was sitting on the back porch, and she was crying. Like, "What's the matter, Mom?" And we had our power turned off. We didn't have any power in the house, and my dad worked hard. He wasn't unemployed or anything like that, but raising 4 kids is expensive.
Yeah.
And he was a blue collar guy. He didn't make very much money, and so things were tight for a couple of months for whatever reason, and they were late on their power bill. And I hope I'm not embarrassing my parents by telling this story, and I apologize.
I've been there.
If I am, but
as a parent, I've been there.
It's one of those.
We all have.
Yeah.
It's life, man.
And if you remember too,
it's
we were in a depression during that time. I mean, that's the time when like there wasn't any gas around
in the 70s.
Yeah, the gas started skyrocketing. From the quarter a gallon to, it jumped up. Like it hit everybody hard,
over $1,
extremely hard.
I remember having to go wait in. I remember having to go wait in lines to get gas with my parents.
Yes,
it's a bizarre. That's such a bizarre memory, but
right.
Yeah, no,
but for us, we were just hopping in the car. We didn't know.
I think our chauffeur at that time, he only came twice a week. I think we had to pare down a little.
His name was Lavelle.
It was Cheddar.
His name was Lavelle.
Lavelle, our butler.
Yeah, he came over. Jim, a guy named Jimmy Mack. He was my He was the guy that my dad hired to take me out and throw me.
Cut your lawn. Steven would cut your yard every once in a while.
Jimmy would swear a lot, and my mom got a little angry one day. And
tobacco.
We never saw me. Steve would come over though. Steve was a nice guy.
Sorry, Shawn, we diluted your story here. I apologize for that.
Anyway.
No, you've made it that much better.
So, hey, Shawn, I got a question though, and this is Brent. If your dad was I talk to my dad once every couple of weeks, and and it was a tradition that he had kind of started when he was younger with his dad. He would call him. And so my dad calls all the kids up and just kind of sees how everybody's doing, and how their families are. And so I get that contact every couple of weeks. We end up talking mostly about politics or BYU football, but that's about it. But
so it's a terrible conversation.
Yeah, sounds horrible.
Lately it has been a little rough. Anyway, don't talk politics around my dad right now. But he's having a rough time. He's not too happy about the current guy in charge. But anyway, Shawn, do you do anything with your dad still? Like, do you ever communicate with him, or just see him on holidays, or what kind of? Do you have anything that you stay connected with him?
Yeah, we talk. It's mostly over the phone because I live.
Yeah.
I don't know how far is it between here and Salt Lake. I live 800 miles away. So they usually come down once a year, and we always get up there once a year. So really, I only get to see him a couple of times a year anymore. But we talk. He's always happy to share advice that I usually don't take.
They're free with advice even to this day, aren't they?
Yeah. And that's fine. They one of the things that I learned about being a parent of an adult is that I still love my kids like they were little, and I don't, obviously need to take care of them the way that I used to, but I still want to help them. And sometimes like with my dad, sometimes that's just talking. And I try not to, share opinions where it's not asked. But I understand that that's my dad, trying to connect and, just trying to show me that he loves me. And, I haven't lived in Utah for 30 plus years now. So most of my interaction with my mom and dad has been kind of limited for that time. So, but I love them. They're great. He doesn't golf anymore. He can't do it.
His back.
But we did that all the time when I was growing up. At least once a month, my dad and I would go golfing when I was a teenager, from the time I was a young teenager until I, was gone. So
all right, you guys want to know.
So tell us about Kent.
Why I'm a BYU fan. Because you guys have asked me that like a million times. The reason I'm a Cougar fan. I was going to say the reason why I asked for your earliest memory is this. My earliest memory was going to a BYU game with my dad. And so that was let's put it this way. He was a new dad. The one memory that I do cherish, I guess you could say, would be the one where we would go to a football game together. And so it was the one time where I knew I wasn't in trouble for something I didn't do. So I wasn't getting my ass tanned because I was doing something right. I was at a game with him. And so, it just happened that BYU at that time was really good. And they sucked before that.
And they suck now.
He went to college.
And they suck now.
They're freaking awesome. But anyway, the reason I'm still a Cougar fan is because of that connection. And my kids have enjoyed it too, going with me to football games. But I think over time, though, the connection. I didn't go to school there, so once he's gone, I probably won't spend a lot of time on BYU anymore. So I'm still not going to root for the damn Utes. Oh my gosh, that's never going to happen. So you guys can forget it.
We'll see.
I'll adopt
That's
someone.
the thing that I don't understand, Karl.
Anyway.
So do you remember
I'm
what's
glad that you explained that.
What's that?
Go ahead, Shawn.
You guys.
I'm just glad that you explained all of that about Cougar fans, because all of this time I thought it was because you liked older women.
Yeah, that's right.
Now I get it.
So
I do like older women too.
I didn't understand.
You were talking about like your earliest memory. Like, what's the earliest football game? Like, can you remember who was quarterback? Like, how far back are we talking?
Well, I mean, it was 1978 when the old stadium was still there.
So is that like Mark Wilson time? Is that?
Well, I remember going to some of the basketball games at the Wilkinson Center, the old place where the Smith Fieldhouse.
I don't remember that place at all. I remember the Marriott Center, but I don't remember that place. I was
4 or 5, and my mom and dad would go. It was really loud. They were probably worried. They were worried about everything when I was.
And I remember what a big deal the expansion was on the stadium too. Like that was just unheard of. That's something that big.
Well, we had season tickets when we were rich, between age 12 and 14. So we'd go to every Saturday, Shawn. We'd go to the BYU games, and because we were rich. And I just want to make sure I emphasize that.
I remember that actually.
Actually, the other good memory I have was when we were living up in Seattle. This was unrelated to BYU. I don't know if you guys have been in Seattle, but we lived in a place called Snohomish.
Yeah.
It's a little suburb, and we were there about a year. My dad was a sales rep for Breon Laboratories. Anyway, we would go down to the Sound, Puget Sound, every weekend pretty much because he liked the seashore, and so he'd drag us down, my sister and I, Krista, and we'd get these big green 5-gallon buckets, and we'd walk around, and there'd be these little mini crabs and little fish, and then we'd put those in the buckets and then take them home with us, and of course they'd die. But one of the things our neighbor would do a lot would be to catch actual big crabs, and so I remember some of my earlier memories of Dad bringing home the crabs. They were in the sink, and they were clawing around.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's cool. And then my mom would start boiling the water, right?
Steam them.
I'd be like, throw those suckers in there, and you'd hear them scream.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. So I thought that was kind of cool. My sister cried, but I thought it was awesome. And,
I had no idea you guys lived in Seattle.
Oh, yeah. It was really pretty, I remember. And there was a lot to do outside. However, it rained all the time. So in that way, it sucked. So I remember being inside a lot. My dad, okay, this is a funny kid story. So it was a rental house. It was up on a hill, and there was these 2 side streets. It was pretty busy streets, too. We had these slugs. Now, slugs are very common. They're like snails because it's raining all the time. They're everywhere, in your lawn, in your house. My mom screamed at 2 a.m. one morning because she stepped on one in the kitchen. So my dad at first, before he realized salt can dissolve slugs, would go around when he first moved in and he'd just pick up the slugs and flip them out into the street. Well, one day one of the neighbors was coming down the hill, and he had flipped about 50 of them in the same spot. The neighbor hits the brakes, and then all of a sudden starts skidding off the road where he hit the slugs. And my dad's like, oh, shit, better not do that again. So found one of the guys at work said, just put salt on them, kid. So he goes out the next day, and then he sees them dissolve, and he's like, yeah. And so he goes around, and he kills hundreds of...
Brutal.
My dad's the only person in Seattle that's out in his front yard with a salt shaker killing slugs. And I'm like, why are you doing that? They're just going to come back. But anyway, that was pretty awesome. So...
Shawn, do you have any stories about Kent? I know you and Kent are really close from our visit there in Phoenix when you guys talked for a while and just bypassed me. Is there any stories you want to share, Shawn, at all?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's funny.
That was pretty funny. So, I got a couple stories. Two things that I remember really, really well about Kent. He was always playing devil's advocate. That's funny. He was always playing devil's advocate, like even in church. So like you go to Sunday school or something, and there's Kent, it's taking the other side of the street on things, and I always thought that was so. I thought he was the most interesting person there.
You know how much it ticked my mom off, though.
Oh
my gosh, she's she's a rock like Brent's mom, just complete believer, and my dad scared the hell out of her at times.
Well, I thought it was really cool. I just, he would say things that you would never hear from anyone else. And I always just liked listening to him talk about stuff because it was always something, one thing that I really hate is getting cookie cutter answers from people when you ask them a question. And you get that so much in we'll
learn about it in the next
Sunday school classes.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll hear about it.
Yeah, so it was just, I just thought your dad was just a really interesting person, and I always thought he was really, really smart. And then which calling, Shawn, that kind of sparked that with him. I don't know. Let's see. It was the Tanners, Tammy, Melinda Morrill, Marty. I think was in our class, so I don't think he was in my dad's class, but it was the class a couple years ahead of us, and he taught them when they were in before the. Well, they were. Marty was ahead of us.
Maybe, I don't know, but all I know is one of the things that he taught was one of the kids had said something to him. I keep hearing in church that I know this church is true.
I remember him talking about that.
They said, I don't know that it's true. Yeah, I don't remember which of his class said that, but my dad really thought about that. And he says, you're right. No one knows the church is true.
I remember your dad once said, how do you know? Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you just saying it because the person before you said that, and the person before them said that, and the person before them said that, and the person before them said that? I remember him talking about that once. I thought it was very, very
you hear the 4-year-olds get up and go, I know the church is true.
Yeah.
I know Joseph Smith was a prophet. Yeah, right. Yeah, how do you know that? And I think after a while, it's almost like a catechism for Mormons, to get up that I know the church is true. I know Joseph Smith's the prophet. I love my mom and dad, and you do that from 4 years old to 16 or 17. And my dad,
to 40 or 50.
Yeah, it drove him crazy. And I think his message resonated with the youth our age, and it didn't resonate as much with the old guard in Sunday school, in the older adult class, but they loved it. Some of them really loved it because he made them think. And that's one thing I will love about my dad is he always made me think. So
no, but I think one of the things that he taught us, or that I learned from him, was, and it's something that I still adhere to today, is don't believe something just because somebody tells you it. Like, look at it, research it, find out for yourself. He's always been that. Look it up, and if you believe it after you read about it and go through it, then that's what you go with. But don't just accept stuff because somebody tells you to. You don't have to do that.
Don't be a lemming.
To this day, I live like that.
I definitely remember him talking about not being a lemming. So the other thing that I remember about your dad, and that is a really good memory of mine, when we went to Zion's Camp, our infamous Zion's Camp.
Oh, Zion's Camp. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, so I mean, he was a funny dude. I mean, he said he he joked around with us a lot. I mean, I just thought your dad was so much fun. And,
he
we
even
played
bought
poker.
the pennies from Zion so we could gamble.
Played poker.
Yeah.
Played poker with us.
And he's standing. I don't remember playing poker before. I think I had maybe a couple of times, but I didn't really understand the game. And so we're sitting there playing, and the only thing that I knew how to play were, twos or having a pair and, and all of that other stuff. So if I had groups of cards, so twos or threes or fours of the same suit, right? That's all I knew. I didn't know anything about flushes at the time or anything. And so your dad's standing behind me, and I had a royal flush, and I folded, and your dad lost it.
You had a royal flush?
I had a, yeah.
Dude, you should have gone all in.
Dad's like, do you know how rare that hand is? Why did you do that? I can't believe you just threw away that hand, Shawn.
You know how many years I played poker? I have never had a royal flush. So you threw away a royal flush, Shawn?
Apparently I was just... Oh. I didn't know. And that's why your dad was having a cow. He was having a cow because that's what he said. Do you know how rare that is?
The problem is you're playing with a bunch of kids that play. Well, I don't know. When you were growing up in the church, were you ever told that playing cards were evil? He was disgusted by me. Were you ever?
When I was little,
told playing cards were evil? I was. I heard some.
Yeah, when I was little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spencer Kimball said that face cards. Spencer Kimball. He said that face cards had the influence of the devil.
Anyway, hey man.
So I want to ask you guys a question because we're all fathers ourselves here. So I found in raising kids, I would always have these moments of, you really shouldn't be laughing at what's going on here because you have to be an adult here, but oh my God, that's really awesome that happened. So I want to ask each of you if you've had that moment and what that moment would be.
Like with your kids?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You as a dad with a moment where like you had to act like a dad, but what they did was actually really kind of funny and cool too.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or what's a legit parenting moment that you had with your child that you look back on and is like, God, that's just ridiculous.
That's a good question. I think
you want to say yours.
Yeah, go ahead, Shawn.
Go ahead. No, I said Brent. Brent should say his because I got to think.
Go ahead, Brent.
So, being as crazy as I am, I actually have multiple ones, but the one I can share right off the bat is in our house, we have 3 levels, and we have stairs that go down, and my boy was sliding down the handrail over and over and over again and kept telling him, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. Well, I ended up grabbing him, picking him up, putting him on top of the side table in the kitchen and pulling out the biggest knife. Pull it out. Knife. And he looks at me, he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm cutting the damn thing off. Cutting the leg off right now. And he goes, well, why? Why are you doing that? I said, because you're going to break the damn thing. I'm going to have to take you to the hospital, and then they're going to have to cut it off there, and it's going to cost me a lot of money. I'm just cutting it off right now. So I lifted my arm up like this. He was like, no! He's never gone down that banister ever since.
That's awesome. I like it. Okay. All right. Well, that does. Oh man, my dad used to tease me about a square needle. He'd take me in and and when I was being a little shit, he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you in and you're gonna get a square needle shot." I'm like, "What do you mean square needle?" He says, "The needle is actually square. It's gonna hurt real bad, and it's big."
Square needle.
Oh, jeez, that worked. It worked every time.
That's what your dad
did. Square needle, man.
That's what your dad did. What did you do?
What?
I can't hear you, Shawn.
Your dad did that to you. What did you? Your dad did that.
What
to
did I
you,
do? Oh, with my kids? Oh, yeah. I told you I didn't spank them, but it didn't mean I wasn't kind of a. I did have. So my dad used to do this really well. Before he spanked me, he'd take his belt off, and he'd snap it like, whoosh, 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 and it'd be like,
oh yeah,
that just
psychological trauma.
Yeah, you just get your eyeballs going. Whoa, shit! And then
I got hit with the belt first, and then he just had to tap his belt buckle after that. That's all he had to do.
Yeah, so that's what I learned to do with my 3 boys, and or 4 boys. The youngest one didn't get this very often. In fact, I didn't need to, but I just snapped that sucker 2 or 3 times as loud as I could and hard as I could, and then I'll be like, "All right, boys, you're gonna get it." And I'm thinking in my head, going, "Yeah, like I'm going to hit him that hard." I'm almost laughing at the terror I'm causing. And then I'm thinking, that's probably bad to be thinking that way, Karl. You shouldn't be delighting in your son's terror. But it worked, if I could get the mama not as unhappy and get her settled down so she's not screaming at me and the kids, and they started behaving, then my life was a lot better. That I could go sit in the room and watch TV without having to be disturbed by it all. That was all it was about, was just shutting them up so I could get back to my TV show, so I could decompress after work. So I don't know. I think the most fun I had was with my daughter. She was 16, and the guy that came over one night, she'd been out with him before, but he had never met me. And I'm a big guy, as you guys know. And so he comes to the front door, and he's this little skinny, what are the latte boy kind? My daughter.
Soy boy?
Latte boys for some reason.
The soy boy.
Anyway, yeah, I think his name was Brody, but she ended up with him for a while. But anyway, he comes to the door.
Is Brody still a boy?
First real date, and he answers, and I said, "Yeah, who are you?" He's like, "Brody," and I said, "What do you want?" He's like, "I want to go. I'm supposed to go out with Mindy." I'm like, "Oh, really? What time are you going to bring her home at?" What time should I bring her home at? 10:30. It was like 9 o'clock already. And I'm like, he's like, 10:30? I'm like, 10:30. And I said, you want to come in my living room? You want to come back into my den? I've got my gun. I'm polishing it. He's like, no, that's okay, sir. I'll get your daughter home at 10:30. I said, and then my wife's giving me shit behind, my back, and then my daughter comes up, down the hall. She's like, "Dad, stop it." I'm like, okay. So he got lucky, but he did get her at 10:30. She came home at 10:30. So I had to give him credit, but that was the last time I had any control of that. And then what's the most uncomfortable thing as a dad is hearing about your daughter's sex life.
Yeah.
And then being told to shut your damn mouth by your daughter and your wife when you have a problem with the whole thing, and feeling like a complete heel. That is one of the most difficult points of being a dad. I never want to go through that again. So I was blessed with just one daughter. So yeah, I mean, as far as the guys are concerned, they're all pretty good boys, but I've always told them there's a box in the closet. It's got something called a prophylactic. Go get, I showed him one time how to put it on a banana, and I said, that's how you use it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. But if you get someone pregnant, I'm going to have to kill you. So just make sure you don't do something stupid. And that was it. I haven't heard anything else from them since then. So it's been several years now. So it's been very peaceful.
So you haven't worn a dress to meet any of their boyfriends or girlfriends at all? You haven't done that?
Oh, hell no. Yeah, hell no. You have?
I have, yes.
Oh my gosh. Did you really?
I did,
you dressed up in a dress?
I did. I met Bobby's girlfriend that he brought over once. I come walking out wearing a dress. just acting just as normal as everything. You know, I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm Bobby's dad. How does this make me look? You know, she didn't know what to think. You know,
did you put
he's just shaking his head. He's like,
That's funny, man. Their eyes must have just popped right out of their skulls. Shawn, did you ever have any of those experiences?
I wish I had done it. Yeah, I mean, so when my daughter, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, much better.
You can hear me okay? All right. So my baby, she actually gets mad when I call her my baby now because she's 18. Dad, I'm 18. I'm not a baby. Okay, well, you're still a baby. You're still my baby. Anyway, when she was little, and apparently, and I actually do remember this now, but I didn't when she told me at the time. She was losing one of her teeth, and she was afraid to pull it out. I think she was afraid to pull it out, and I told her, you know what? Go wrap a string around it in the bathroom, tie it to the door, and slam it shut, and that'll pull it out. And I don't want you to come out of the bathroom until you've done that. And, you know, I was just kidding, of course. And she told me that she sat in the bathroom and cried for like an hour because she thought I was serious. So I guess that's the, you know.
You whip, pull your tooth out.
You bet. Yeah, so when you have a dry sense of humor like Brent's talking about with his father, I kind of have the same sense of humor, dry, and, you know, I say stuff and I sound serious, but I'm not at all. Apparently that doesn't go over real well with little kids. So it might be, yeah. So,
did she pull it out?
I actually felt terrible. No. I think she finally came out and said that she couldn't do it. I can't do it. You've been in there all this time? You know, just not good. Not good.
I'll tell you, there's a story I can't tell, but being dad's a awesome, we all have thing. Those. Yeah, but
it is, and
you know, I think that's the best thing about my life has been being a dad. I mean, that I don't think I would have traded that for anything. And my kids all know that. You know, I mean, you know, I wasn't a great husband, I guess, but I have been a pretty good dad. So, you know, I hope my kids just, you know, that's the only thing I hope they take from it is it's okay being a dad or a mom, and being dad is just awesome. You guys all are good dads too. I know you guys love your kids, and if, I don't know. Am I wrong in saying that it's the best experience a guy can have in life?
No,
it's the best.
It's from the moment you first hold your child, you know, in your arms, you feel the change over you. You know, you wake up, you know, and I think that's a tribute from, you know, the three of us being raised from great fathers themselves, you know, kind of passed down to us, and now recognizing that we're now in those shoes. And believe me, anybody who is stupid enough to think I could be a great father is really insane. But, you know, I mean,
you must have been a fun dad, though. I must admit,
too much of a kid still, you know. But it's still those times of discipline when you got to be a dad. But sometimes you just like look at this stuff and you're like I've said to Tracy numerous times, I'm like, oh my God, like we need to really punch him, but oh my God, that was awesome.
Well, okay, who would your kids think are meaner, you or your wife? Who is the best disciplinarian?
Oh, my wife.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, hands down.
Yeah, okay. All right. And Shawn, you and Rachel, who was the bad guy? Who was the good cop, bad cop? Let's put it that way.
I think it was pretty even.
Was it pretty even?
Level playing field.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty level. It was pretty even too in our
if you
house.
Ask him,
when they were little kids, I think I enjoyed the fact I had to work a lot and she had to stay at home with them because that would have driven me batshit crazy. But I think they did her a few times. She paddled the hell out of them a few times. So, but I don't blame her. They would drive me crazy. But as they're adults and as they're teenagers, I mean, I've had a ball. So, well, guys, hey, this has been great. I got to get to dinner. Speaking of being a dad, so I still. It
was good, guys. Great catching up again with y'all.
Yeah, it has been. All right. Well, hey, we should, audience, get back to a little more regular schedule. Person, by the way. What's that, Shawn?
I said you both look so much better on camera than you do in person.
Smell better, too, probably.
Hey, that was a fun trip, though, guys. It was fun.
It was very good.
The only thing, it was kind of the rotating sushi part that kind of got me a little bit, but other than that, it was a fun time.
What? It was good.
I know, I had a good time.
It was good.
I'll pick the sushi next time.
Yeah, you pick the sushi next time. All right, guys, you have a great weekend.
Great talking to you guys.
We'll get back at it next